Like everybody, your journey begins with where you're born and how you're brought up. And so my mother is a very, very defining factor of my career. She was a teacher and administrator within our schools and colleges. She had to bring myself and my 4 siblings up. Not just us, actually, like 10 other people or more passed through her hands. And for her to ensure that she gave us all equal opportunities and the education that we desired and qualified for, she did extensive farming for maize and later wheat. And it's amazing that I'm here at CIMMYT, where we work on maize and wheat. We are at the mirror that younger scientists are going to be looking at, young women scientists especially, and so continuing to use the example of what we are to mentor them and to create the images that are positive for them. Largely, we have to be the change that we want to see. We have to walk the talk. Encourage that culture where creativity, diverse opinions matter. We will actually continue to provide groundbreaking solutions.
Please join our next seminar in the Catalyst of Change series.
Welcome to the Catalyst of Change Women Leaders in Science seminar series. This seminar is in English with interpretation available in Spanish, French, and Hindi. You may select the language of your preference at the Zoom bar menu. We invite you to follow us in LinkedIn, YouTube, and social media using the hashtag Women Science for the Catalyst of Change Women Leaders in Science seminar series. We will be hearing today from a leader of our very own, Dr. Maureen Miruka, Director of Gender Equity, Youth, and Social Inclusion at CIMMYT. Dr. Maureen will have a conversation with Remy Labougen, Finance Manager of the Global Maize Program at CIMMYT. We invite you to submit your questions and comments on Slido to be addressed in the Q&A session right after the conversation. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Brian Govertz, Director General of CIMMYT, to officially open the event and welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Maureen Miruka. Dr. Govertz, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are, and welcome once again to this Catalyst of Change Women Leaders in Science series. As you know, at CIMMYT in 2023 already, we launched a TED Talk meets Fireside Chat style series on women leaders because we want more women leaders in science institutions like ourselves. To achieve this goal of broader representation, different management styles, different backgrounds, and a balance of views in our science execution every day, we need to provide more opportunities to hear from stories, life stories, leadership stories, lessons learned, and insights. Therefore, we highlight women who are leaders in all sorts of capacities, fields, and disciplines, because we believe that you can't be what you can't see. And each and every one of us has to compile our own leadership style. We can learn from experiences, from those lessons shared of many, and compile from that our own style. Dr. Maureen Miruka is a true Catalyst of Change guest speaker here today. She's currently the Director of Gender Equity, Youth and Social Inclusion at CIMMYT, but she has already 20 years of experience post-PhD, where she has been a gender specialist with deep experience in gender equity and social inclusion, and particularly how that drives food and water systems transformation. Her work spans leading strategic initiatives, securing significant grants, and facilitating organizational restructuring to foster impactful change in women's empowerment, sustainable agriculture, and food systems management. As a thought leader and advocate for gender justice, she delivers her extensive experience to drive gender-transformative approaches, foster cross-cultural collaboration, and champion women's economic empowerment. Throughout her career, she has continuously advanced her expertise in gender-responsive agricultural research and development, leading pioneering projects that have positively impacted millions of women smallholder farmers and their communities. Maureen is particularly proud of leading the development, research, and scale-up of CARE's farmer field and business schools, a gender-transformative and integrative approach to service delivery in agriculture. She has secured major grants in partnerships with key foundations and corporations, as well as major gifts enabling the transformation of food systems that are more inclusive and equitable for women, youth, and their communities worldwide. And Maureen will be in conversation with our own Remy, Program Finance Manager of the Global MACE program at CIMMYT. Remy started her professional career as an audit assistant, actually, in Southeast Asian Regional Center for Graduate Study and Research in Agriculture. After 3 years of working there, she was transferred and she started at IRI as an accountant in finance and was promoted there to Assistant Finance Manager. And after that, she came to CIMMYT, where she has worked as a consultant, as a project office supervisor, to the executive officer of research management prior to her current position, helping to keep the Global MACE program afloat, so to say. Therefore, I'm sure that you will enjoy the conversation between two leading ladies of our own institution. And with that, without further introduction, I give a warm welcome to our distinguished catalyst of change. Maureen, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Bram, for that amazing introduction. It is such an honor to be here, again, as a staffer of CIMMYT, a member of staff of CIMMYT, to share my story on the Catalyst of Change series. I've been here so far now, I think, about 7 months. I must say I'm very well settled in the organization and in living in Mexico, which is important, you know, to being here. And I think I've just watched the video, and in all of my stories recently, I get to talk about my mother a lot because I think I think she's the only person that I really miss out of being Kenya and moving at my age and at her age. And so I think you're going to hear a few more stories, you know, about her. And it's really because with the rest of the family, we are connected, you know, digitally, but with our parents, we know that that is different. And so all the time I reflect again around my mother. I say, I wish I would be half the parent that she was and is to us, but especially when growing up, because there was 5 of us as her children. She also took other, you know, people in, but what she did was to ensure that she gave all of us equal opportunities at education and made sure that we thrived wherever, you know, we were. And so what she said is she looked at all of us and she said, you, if you give me an A, this is where I will get you. If you give me an A+ or a B+, this is where I will get you in terms of the grading system in Kenya. And so when I completed my high school, there was a lot of unrest in our universities, you know, at that time, and it led to people delaying for 2 years to get into university. And my mom enrolled me in a private university, which was pretty expensive, you know, at that time. But she made that sacrifice that saw me complete a university by the time I was, you know, 21. But actually, if I may just rewind, there was that there was that soft love, but there was also tough love because when I was in high school, I sort of, when I joined the cool kids and wanted to focus on the fact that I was slightly better than them. And so I could get these not so good grades, but still be better than this other crowd that I wanted to associate with. And my mother actually came to school. And for those who grew up in such settings, I got a bit of a whooping that saw me get my grades from the 50s all the way to the top 5. And that is how I was able to qualify to join university and for her to invest in my education in private university, where I pursued a Bachelor of Science degrees in home economics and child and family studies. And that is what led me more towards the social sciences, you know, side, you know, of things. But I actually did want to be a social worker initially growing up. Again, at that time in our country, or most countries, we were at a place where you really had to find a job opportunity where it was available at that time. There was not too much choice. And so I joined Calro as a very young scientist at 21, and nobody was hired for seven years before I was, and a while after. And I got to be referred to as a baby scientist for a very long time when I was, you know, 21. And at that time, it seemed pretty harmless, but it began to later reflect in me what ageism at work and things like that, you know, like that mean. And so I joined the socioeconomics department at Caldro. And 4 years later, I got my PhD scholarship. And at that time, Dr. Felista McKinney, who's one of the pillars, again, aside of my mother in my life, looked at me and saw my potential. And she said, we have an opportunity coming up under DFID funded project. And Maureen, I think you have the confidence at this point. What we really want is someone who's confident enough to defend a PhD thesis and of course has the knowledge. And so I was in this panel and I got this opportunity again at very young, at this stage of my career. And I got to undertake my PhD research, which was a hybrid and a sandwich. A sandwich in the sense that I was both in the UK and I'm conducting research in Western Kenya, and also that I was looking at insect pests of sorghum and farmer knowledge, attitudes and practices. So at that time, we were looking at the newly introduced varieties of sorghum, and merging those with the social-cultural practices of the Luo community, because sorghum is a traditional, crop there. And so I went from, understanding the anthropology elements of those, as well as the life cycles of the insects and rearing, those in the lab as entomologists do. And so my PhD was an exact hybrid of social sciences and biophysical sciences, which at a very early stage gave me the opportunity and the leverage to, to cut across both disciplines, as because we know it's an age-old issue in terms of social sciences and biophysical sciences, especially, gender research. And that is when the gender researcher in me was born, because we had to look at the preferences of men and women, men, of course, preferring the darker, long maturing varieties for markets, and the kind of ugali, which is our staple food that they preferred to eat, and women preferring the lighter, shorter maturing varieties because of, again, food for children, porridge. It was more tasty, and basically just for for the home, for homestead, for household use. And there was a lot of a heavy gender research that we did at that time, and feeding back to the sorghum, breeders. And so 16 years later, after being in Caldro, I joined CARE, which, as you know, has a very heavy leaning, or actually puts gender equality and women's empowerment at the center. And I say that exactly within 2 years of being in CARE, I learned so much about just gender sensitive or responsive research, but moving into gender transformative approaches. And I continued to partner, with the rest of the CG, in terms of gender transformative approaches and social norms, in research. 12 years later, after being at CARE, I'm here at CIMMYT. And what attracted me to the position at CIMMYT is that I felt that having done gender research and development for all of these years, I was offered an opportunity at leadership level to see how we can continue to institutionalize and mainstream gender and put it at the core of what we do. And now we're moving more from gender to looking at social inclusion and looking at youth as well. And the fact that then I would continue to apply all the learning that I had from my research days and development, and then bring it to define and determine the research and learning agenda around equitable and inclusive systems, inclusive food systems in CIMMYT. And so that gave me the opportunity to send what attracted me, to this position. As you know, again, Nomad Bollock said, science is one of the most noble careers, and I was really happy to have the opportunity to come into this space. What I have learned, all these years, through my experience, as I said, there is always a tension. Sometimes people tend to feel, you know what, if we're here to address poverty, why do we have to bring more issues around gender? Why do we have to talk about youth? Why do we have to talk about inclusion? Is this taking resources away, from us? But then I'd like to challenge all of us to think around the fact that gender inequality is actually a root cause, an underlying cause of poverty. And so if we don't tackle that, if we leave the youth who are the future behind, if we don't look at systemic injustices as cased and all of that, then we are actually leaving half the team behind and turning up for a match that we can, that we cannot win. If you take the case of youth, for example, and I'm extremely excited that CIMMYT is poised to take leadership on the area of youth, is that, again, we want to separate young men and young women. Why? Young women face very much more severe obstacles earlier in life, and they also tend to stay longer in food systems as young men will get out into other spaces and as construction, because women have mobility and other security challenges. So even as we look at youth, we want to define, what do we mean? What age bracket are we looking at? What are the opportunities do we have for them? Because as far as defining youth is concerned, if I look at the country that I come from, I'm still very youthful. If I wanted to run, for politics, even in all of my 50 years of age, when we want to look at caste, when we want to look at tribe, how does belonging to a certain caste and how does belonging to a certain tribe exclude you from accessing opportunities, and what challenges does it present to you? And so for us to address poverty, for us to address power dynamics, for us to address rights and injustices, we really have to be looking at gender equality, youth, and social inclusion as one of the underlying causes and as one of the solutions, right up there with climate change and civil strife. I have also, again, I think this lesson will come up so many times, and it is one of the pillars of the work that we are doing at CIMMYT in terms of our strategy is very clear around interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, multi-institutionalism, in looking at, we cannot get the sum total of the changes that we would like to see if we do not work together with different disciplines, all the way from agronomy, breeding, socioeconomics, gender research, focus on youth and all that. We cannot get the sum total of the changes that we want to see. And we cannot also do that as an organization alone. We need to bring the right partners on board that subscribe to the values that we that we also subscribe to. And so I will continue to challenge us to always have our open minds in terms of doing that, of getting teams together that can deliver results. That is my first piece of advice to all of us researchers. The other is that we always have to look around us and see who allies are. I think it is very well known that I completely champion and support bringing men as allies in the fight for gender equality and women's empowerment. So we want to ensure that we carry men and boys along in this agenda, as well as, again, as I said, partners and donors. And in doing so, we have to sit down and look at what are our own, where are we placed? I've just given you my story. I keep giving my stories a lot. Look back at your own story and see, does it put you at a place of where you want to make the change of what you did not experience, growing up, or do you want to build up on it, or do you want to pay it forward? Does it take you to take a step back and see, I may have been in a place of power and privilege, I didn't realize it. Did it lead me to have an unconscious bias, for instance? Yesterday, while traveling to Obregon, I had a very deep experience that might not have seemed so, because we were checking through security, and I was asked to take off my shoes. But when I looked around, nobody was taking off their shoes, and someone had the same shoes as me. I know that sometimes there can be random, checks on security. But my colleague who was ahead of me was also quite puzzled because I had the type of shoes that I actually shouldn't, take off. And I told him, you know what, I'm kind of used to this. I travel a lot in places where I would be like the only very different, person around. And sometimes I tend to notice things a bit more, but I'm used to it. And he was really sad that it is something that I'm used to. But he did something that really touched me because he went down and tied my laces for me. And I said, oh my goodness, nobody has ever had to do this for me. But then from there, we had a very rich discussion in terms of saying, okay, as a white man, I likely never have to experience, some of these. And I hope that I become a good travel companion to you and to other people. And it got me thinking and reflecting that if we had allies like that in all the spaces, in all the change that we want to make, it would make the world, so much better, because that was a moment that could have had me feeling very sour, about that particular moment. And it's especially actually in the way that she told it to me and the attitude that she told me to take off my shoes. But in just a few minutes, that had been wiped away into a very positive experience and a deeper reflection on on privilege, especially. And it is something that I will continue to call on us, to do. The other lesson that I would share from everything that I have said here is equal opportunities. I think I began by saying that my mom gave everyone that passed across her path, whether you were her child or not, an equal opportunity at, at education. And I have said before during Science Week that CIMMYT has to be that place where everybody feels, welcomed, valued, and has an equal chance of participation. It does take being intentional to do so. And again, that is the direction in which we are headed as an organization in terms of institutionalizing gender equality, youth and social inclusion in the way that we do things, and ensuring that we are holding forums, such as this, because we want to be the change, that we want to see, and ensuring that we have the right capacities to be able to do so. So everybody has the ability and the opportunity being, within CIMMYT, first of all, to exemplify the values that we want to see, but also to carry and to bring other people, along. And I believe strongly for every lesson that I have learned in paying it forward. So we have to open opportunities for mentorship for younger scientists, for younger, even family members. Everybody say, I cannot be talking about women's empowerment and I have women within my own family, for instance, so youth within my own family. And by here, I mean extended, family, and then creating for them opportunities, because every little seed we plant is likely to get out and impact, more lives. And so when we look at some of us who are in the I don't want to say like much later or advanced stages of our career, please let's think of carrying other, people along in the opportunities and facilities and the mentorship and the kinds of discussions, that we have for them. The other piece of advice, maybe the last one that I'll give at this point before I end my talk, is even as we seek to mentor the younger people coming, we also need our own support systems. I have a very closely knit group of friends. You could call it almost a club, but a club again might seem elitist, that we are always relying on one another, turning up for one another. If someone has an interview, we prepare together, review resumes, talk each other through. Why this is important is that that women, well, there's actually like evidence in that regard that women will only apply for a job opportunity when they feel like they have 100% of the qualifications, and men will only apply at 60. So sometimes in those moments, you might experience self-doubt, but these people have walked journeys from you. Some of my friends are 25 to 30 years old, and they remember bits and pieces of you that might not be very obvious to you at that moment, and they will help you turn up in that sense. I would like us to see having those kinds of, like if it's women, that kind of sorority within, CIMMYT, men and women together. And I look forward to reviving women in science, or women in CIMMYT, right here at Obregon, where I am today. I'm looking forward tomorrow to having a conversation on women in crop science and seeing how we can, bring back those spaces where we foster, that culture of caring for one another in our careers. And I like to say, turning up as best friends who want the best for each other, but we do have a common goal that is embedded in our strategy that we want to, achieve. And so I will encourage all of us to turn up, to care for each other. It is one of the values actually that I like, and that we are, that we are embedding in CIMMYT in terms of how we turn up for ourselves, for our work. But the focus should be the impact group that we are looking at, who are women, youth, and marginalized groups and population. So join me in this journey, and I'd like you to reflect on what is the one action that you can take today and every day to promote gender equality, youth, and social inclusion in your work, and also to look at, continually look at what are some unconscious biases or assumptions that we hold, may I hold, and how can we overcome them? Let us create spaces to have honest conversations about those. My office, virtual and physical, is always open for us to have such discussions. Again, thank you so much for having me here today. I look forward to hearing from you on my talk. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Maureen, for inspiring presentation. Hello, everyone. My name is Remy Labugan, a member of CIMMYT Women Science and Innovation Chapter. I'm so excited to have a conversation with Maureen. She is a seasoned gender specialist with expertise in gender equity and social inclusion. We heard in your presentation that your mother is your inspiration in your chosen career. What inspired you in your chosen career? And what are the bottlenecks or challenges you face as a woman before attaining this position, Maureen?
Great. What was the first part of the question? Sorry, Remy?
What inspired you in your chosen career?
Great. Thank you so much. And I'm glad to be here with you, Remy, to have this conversation. And so, as I said, my mother had 5 of us, and I could say that about another between 10 to 15 people passed through her hands, not in terms of the institutions she led, but through for actual, education. And as I was growing up, we had this joke about my home being a care international, where people would, pop in and out if they didn't want to be at their home. So long as they wanted education, my mother would take them in. And so as we made that joke, for me, it was the irony of life later, to turn up working, working for care. But I think that's what gave me the leaning to want to be a social worker initially, just looking at children and family studies and all that. And I did not imagine that later that would merge with the agriculture sector, that we are looking at what does this mean for women, for families. How does the work we do on maize and wheat and dryland crops, what does it mean when we talk about children and their nutrition and their cognitive abilities and the ability, to come up that way. So for me, gender equality and women's empowerment is something that I lived every day, right from my mother and then back from her own family, in terms of how her own father gave equal opportunities at an age when that would not be done, for them. And so it inspired me to step into this space, that no matter what I do, I want to impact people more directly. And so actually, after I completed my PhD, I went more on the social sciences, as opposed to the to the entomology bit of it, but those have to mesh together.
Okay. Okay. As a gender expert, what is the difference between gender equity, gender equality, and woman empowerment?
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And actually, I remember that your last question was about, was also had the challenges that I have, like what challenges I have experienced. That is one of those. in terms, especially the women's empowerment thing, because people tend to imagine that gender equality is all about women. And we continually have to explain to them that gender equality is not about it's not just about women. We talk about gender equality when we recognize, as I said before, that we have to include everybody, men, traditional leaders, thought leaders, religious leaders, because gender equality really is about power dynamics. But then we recognize that there is a gap. You will see that women and children and young women and youth are disproportionately affected when it comes to climate change, when it comes to, to war, when it comes, to all of that. And so the idea is to try and bridge that gap, because we already have a very key statistic telling us that if women had the same access and opportunities as men do, we would see the global economy gaining an additional $1 trillion, or that it would reduce hunger for 45 million people. And that is if they had only 20 to 30% of the access of the resources that, that men have. So gender equality is the ultimate aim that we want to work towards, in a space where it is equal. But for us to achieve gender equality, we have to have equity, where we are looking at meeting people at their various points of needs and ensuring that the rewards, the opportunities are equitable to enable us achieve gender equality. And I think I've explained how women's empowerment comes to that, when we recognize there's a gap in that regard.
Okay, my next question is, what is your plan to ensure a more inclusive environment for all genders in CIMMYT?
Perfect. That is all I am here to do. I feel very switched on for it, because CIMMYT has laid the perfect groundwork for that, by recognizing the need for this in our strategy, by creating a unit such as the one that I would be leading. And within that, it gives me the opportunity to develop what we are doing right now, which is an action plan that enables us to embed gender equality, youth and social inclusion to achieve the aims of our strategy. And in our strategy, it is being operationalized by having 3 chapters. So we have the science and innovation chapter, where all our research takes place. We are ensuring that all our research is moving towards being responsive and transformative. We will no longer undertake gender blind research, and we will ensure that our scientists have the tools, the capacities, the approaches, and to embed transformative and responsive approaches in the research that we undertake. Within the engagement chapter, we are actively seeking out donors who and especially at this very dynamic time. The donor landscape has changed, so we have to be extremely deliberate and careful in the kinds of donors we seek and how we communicate our work, on gender, and how we raise funding, for gender research within our programs. And of course, catalysts of change is one of the things, again, that to look at in the engagement chapter. Within the operations, we want to work very closely in collaboration, with HR and with everyone. Inclusive workplaces and workspaces are a responsibility of everyone in CIMMYT. So we want to make sure that each member of staff and all our leaders are equipped to foster an inclusive culture, that they have safe spaces, to raise and have conversations on where we want to be as an organization. As I say, culture is the thing that is when you look up, when you put a mirror in front of you, it shows you who you are. Culture is going to be that for us, and we have to very deliberately work towards that.
Okay. So what is your advice to young women professionals who are struggling to hear their voice in their chosen field in agriculture?
Great, thank you so much. So everything I said and more, please find allies around yourself. Be bold in seeking opportunities. If you see that there's any obstacles ahead, analyze what those obstacles are. And one of the principles of my current life is to seek all the help you can get in whichever place that you can, that you can find it. And there is lots and lots of career resources and options that you can look at, as well as individuals that can provide it. Identify one or two people who you see as mentors and work towards those. Of course, do very practical things as apply for scholarships when you see them. And when I say focus on one or two people, I was telling Bram sometime that I look up to his leadership as his direct report in terms of how he conceptualizes and breaks down and communicates, matters that are very serious, but then they seem lighter, to deal with in the way that he deals with them. And I told him, you're coaching me every day without getting paid for it. And so I would advise young researchers, to do so, and to just really pick up the threads that are around them and make them work for them.
Okay, so my final question is, there is a declining interest from youth to pursue degree in agriculture. What can CIMMYT do to make farming, agriculture career attractive to youth of today?
Youth are our future. I actually
Yes.
saw an article yesterday saying that the youth of now are going to be like the wealthiest individuals that we will see. In their time. I mean, in their future. And I like to say that the future is now. And so the way agriculture has been presented before has been as that thing only elderly people do, or people who dropped out of, high school or could not complete college would do, sort of like a dirty, kind of thing. Organizations, and this is where CIMMYT is also moving to, have to be looking at agriculture as creating employment and dignified employment, for children, for youth. And again, CIMMYT, in the work that we have done on mechanization, on digitization, the world is really moving it, forward in that direction, are all the opportunities that can make agriculture attractive for youth. There's a caveat though with regards to digitization. It is not a panacea for for everything in agriculture. There is such a lack of uptake of some agricultural digital technologies, especially for women and youth. So we have to be very careful not to widen the gender digital divide. Even as I say that there was positive data around the fact that the digital gender divide is closing, but how do we use it and make sure that we don't edge out women and youth, finally. CIMMYT through CIMMYT Academy, we have also facilities in the field and in the lab that can attract, the youth to come and see what it looks like, and that there is different levels and niches within agriculture that they can get into. It doesn't necessarily have to be one which seems like very unattractive, for them. So the more we keep opening up these opportunities, ensuring that we partner, with the research and other research and academia to get the youth, come through CIMMYT Academy, as well as other structures that we are putting in place. I have just talked about, women in science or women in crop science or women in CIMMYT, just modeling those behaviors for them. And then through the Paula Canto Center, which we are really looking at giving structure and resources, we hope to create a hub where we can attract young women researchers, make them feel supported as they seek to grow in their careers.
Yeah, Remy, we can listen to you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Remy, for having this very interesting conversation. I saw that that was your last question. So now we would like to open the floor for questions from the audience. We invite you to raise your hand, to turn on your camera and unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question or comment, or you can submit it via Slido. So by now we have several questions already received by at the Slido tool, and I would like to start with the first one. Youth is a new part of the GEYSI program at CIMMYT, or at least the Y is a new in the acronym. How do you see the challenge of amplifying youth voices in agricultural science in spaces where science hierarchies by age and experience are historical and quite rigid?
Perfect. That's a great question, and a tough one in that sense. I think I also started by saying that I joined the workforce at the age of 21, and for a long time I experienced challenges. We are meeting in a boardroom and someone says, "Maureen, can you check if the tea is ready? Maureen, can you bring the printouts? Maureen, can you do this and that and that?" That is the very basic of challenges that youth face in agriculture. Then it comes into the conversation that what I just said about ensuring that some of us in advanced stages of our career can actually open up opportunities for youth to engage. Look at your teams. How diverse are they? Please don't look at just the men and the women in the team. Ensure that we are having the early career researchers, give them opportunities for publication and authorship, together with you, because that is what raises that. And please, allow people to make mistakes, not allow people to make deliberate mistakes. Carry them through their mistakes, mentor them, and ensure that you provide them the right resources that they require, because not all of us, none of us actually steps into any job or any role, knowing it all. And so I will encourage the youth in research to be more bold in seeking and creating spaces and inviting us into those spaces, and the scientists that are more advanced in their careers also creating those spaces and being open to getting youth into those.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing the story about your shoelaces. Can you give some other examples of how we can incorporate GEYSI principles into our everyday life and interactions with our colleagues?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Power and privilege is something that when we begin to do the capacity building of CIMMYT, I think it's something that we can and should do every day, and then to live, in our lives. And again, I would seek for every manager. Once you have people reporting to you, take a step back, interrogate every way we turn up in work is based on our own culture, how we were brought up, our biases, which other organizations, we have been. It's a sum total of all of that. So continually interrogating or introspecting into some of those will enable us turn up as better leaders and as better colleagues. There is lots and lots of resources that we can use. We will gather those together for CIMMYT, but we do have them at the CG's GDI website and other leadership development programs that can enable us, turn up, for those at work. If you feel treated differently at work or elsewhere, find a way to bring it up. I always say I will never create a furor in a place like an airport in this age of social media. It doesn't serve you well, and it doesn't serve the cause well. Find other ways of channeling it, even if it is not directly to that person. But I have actually individually always stepped up when I can and called someone on the side. If you're in a restaurant and someone is not treating you well, you sit down with them and have a conversation with them that in a way that gets them to reflect about where they are. It doesn't mean that sometimes I do not stop someone in their tracks. I had again a traveling experience in Kenya earlier this year where someone was pushing me at the back to move to the front and push the person at the front, and I had to stop them in their tracks from being able to do so and get the support of the Kenyan Airports Authority, someone to help me do so. So you have to weigh each situation, but ensure that that is channeled as a lesson.
Thank you so much. So this is a question for both Maureen and Remy. As you are both from other countries and now living and working in Mexico, have you observed different expectations by gender in your home countries against Mexico?
Still too early for me to tell. I really would like to go out to the field, though I have heard from colleagues that there is very pockets of difference where we go to the field. Sorry, I don't have the name in that right now, but there's an area in Mexico where you go, you will not even get women coming out to attend meetings and all that. Very much applies in Kenya as well. Kenya is one country, but we have 41 ethnic tribes, and each of these tribes have very defined, sociocultural norms. I, for instance, come from a very patriarchal society and would like to see, community in Kenya, and would like to see what are the differences and similarities, with that in Mexico. But for me, what I can say, being in just moving around in Mexico, in Texcoco mostly, which is where I have mostly moved around, and within CIMMYT campus, it has felt very warm. Everyone I have told, it feels to me like I'm at home, and even the landscape and the features of Texcoco just reminds me of home, and it makes me feel more settled actually and acclimatized. But I'm yet to delve into more of the sociocultural issues.
Thank you. So we can hear Remy's opinion after living in Mexico several years. Remy, over to you.
Yeah. So far, I have not experienced any difference between the Philippines and Philippine culture and the Mexican culture. Maybe because we are colonized by Spaniards, so that is the reason why we are more like a sister. They are calling us brother and sister. Philippines and Mexico is brothers and sisters. We have a very same culture.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Remy. Thank you. So this is a question for Maureen. Having recently joined Mexico from CARE, are there GEYSI programs, initiatives, or activities from your previous work that you thought worked well and might translate well to CIMMYT?
Yes, definitely. And I think that's why I was hired. Coming from CARE, which is an organization that puts gender equality and women's empowerment, that has led the world actually in developing all their theoretical grounding and basis for gender transformative, approaches. And one of the things that I like that CARE did is in the 90s, using their own funding, they said what actually works for women's empowerment. And they did a strategic impact inquiry in 90 countries over so many projects and talked to so many people, and they came up with a framework that defined we have to build agency, we have to transform relations, and we have to change, we have transform structures, and we have to change relations both in the informal and in the informal sphere, because in the informal sphere is where the social norms, the culture, the biases are embedded, like what is not on paper. I would like to bring that particular aspect to CIMMYT in terms of ensuring that we are looking at both the formal and informal spheres, that we are looking more at social norms, that we are looking more at power dynamics and how they influence the work that we do, and actually to build on CIMMYT's own reflection of the green revolution and of what that means for power dynamics, and bring all these tools and approaches that I learned, from CARE, and adapt them into our work. I also need to say that actually the initial work within the CG on gender transformative approaches was led by CIMMYT. That was the Genovate project, and it influenced the development of gender transformative approaches within the CG. And the CG also worked with CARE in a lot of projects that I was involved in to embed these approaches. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you to bring all these lessons to bear so that we can further that agenda.
Thank you very much. Sisterhood is easy to say, but often institutional or personal culture makes it hard to fully realize. How would you invite others to emphasize and practice it?
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you so much. I really, really hope to provide leadership in that. And so the first thing I'm going to do as we look at that agenda is to get all the sisters that were involved in this agenda before, look at where it was, where we want to go, ensuring that we are bringing everyone, on board. So bringing allies in that, in that sense. Trying to do a lot of critical reflection on the values that we want to see. So if we say that we're having conversations here that are confidential, it's not just a statement. What is going to help us have confidential conversation and create those safe spaces? And beyond that, how are we going to follow up on the commitments or the needs that are coming up? How is CIMMYT going to turn up? For that case, because this is within, an institution. And so I'm looking at engaging leadership, in that sense. And I think that goes to reinforce why my role was embedded within the leadership team and in the Director General's office, so that we say, these are the felt needs. This is how we want to lead the women in CIMMYT agenda. This is how we need you to turn up for us, and where are we going to meet in that particular space. And then, as I said, inclusiveness and safe spaces and everything are a responsibility of every individual. And so we also need to be looking at, how do I turn up in that space? How do I turn up for the other, person? And what do I need to be able to turn up? And then collectively, we can create and craft that agenda.
Thank you so much. So very good. We have more questions here at the Slido, and the other one is, what strategies can institutions adopt to support women's physically and emotional well-being at all life stages, especially 50 and more.
Great. And so in doing the GEYSI action plan, one of the things that we want to bring on board is the well-being strategy that CIMMYT did before, and take it more from being a document and build on the current efforts that CIMMYT has undertaken to build on wellness and well-being in the workspace, as well as take people's views and observations on what we actually need there for us to create a space that looks at well-being and wellness. One of the issues that has come up, not just in CIMMYT, but in the CG, with regards to work-life balance and well-being and wellness, the highest scores were actually from women who had more negative experiences, in this regard. So if we take an element like work-life balance, what is one of the most like tangible things that we can do about it? We've had conversations on the leadership team, for instance, with regards to emails on the weekends. And this, we know that emails, that weekends differ. For some people, their weekend starts Friday and their week starts Monday. But the idea is that for those 2 days, everybody, wherever they are, they need to have a moment to rest and recharge and turn up and not be able to work at the weekend. So if we are in positions of leadership, if I am sending emails on the weekend, my team is going to be knowing that they're going to be having it like my supervisor, Maureen, might send a message and I need to be checking my phone. But if you know that she's not going to send a message, you're not going to be checking on it, and you're going to be able to turn up at work. I did that for a change management process that I led at CARE. Initially, actually, the members of the leadership team protested it themselves, but after 2 weeks, 2 of them came to me and said, I have been able to dedicate a whole weekend to my family without focusing on work. And this has allowed me, to turn up at work on Monday so refreshed. So there is those individual actions that leaders and managers can do, but then we also need our staff to be empowered enough to hold leadership accountable, in the sense that I had time off with my family on the weekend. I was not able to respond to your email, but it is Monday and here I am. And that should be okay at that point, and no one should face any backlash, for doing so. That is the organization I hope to continue to build in and belong in.
Thank you so much. It is more about organization time and some priorities during our organization of time as well. So this is a question from the Catalyst of Change production team. However, the production team is not. So we would like to make this question for you, Maureen, and for Remy. So we are very happy to have you in the GEYSI leader role now. So what suggestions do you have for the Catalyst of Change series? How can we make it better?
First of all, you are doing an amazing job. Thank you so much. I have looked at the profile of the people that we have brought. I have been able to attend, some of those and become very inspired. What I'd like us to do going forward, or what I would recommend that we do forward, is to ensure that we bring other change makers that do not necessarily fit in the bucket of women. Let's bring men. I've talked about men as allies. When we look at social inclusion, we look at caste, we look at disability, we look at pride or LGBTQ communities, we look at all sorts of age, especially like in terms of youth. And so how can we bring diverse sets of leaders that have created change in each of these domains, and then bring them on board? But quite quickly, there is even CIMMYT staff who have come up, to volunteer themselves to be male change, agents or champions, male change GEYSI champions. Let's begin with those and move forward, with those. The other thing which I think I have seen a brief improvement in right now is to ensure that we put these on people's calendars way in advance, such that we are able to turn up for these conversations because they're very, very meaningful.
Thank you, Maureen. So Remy, what do you think about it?
I will just echo what Maureen is saying, that we need diversity, other genders. We need to invite other genders to be involved in this talk, because we are inspired by what they achieve, and we need to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much. It is already, we are almost reaching the time. So we appreciate very much Maureen Miruka and Remy Labugen for being here today. So on behalf of Dr. Brian Govers, Director General of CIMMYT, we very much appreciate Dr. Miruka for sharing with us her outstanding professional and personal journey. So also we thank all the audience that joined today, and we invite you to join our following Catalyst of Change Women Leaders in Science series. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Please join our next seminar in the Catalyst of Change series.